Oké. Dus je hebt geen interesse om daar aan mee te werken?
Nee, ik weet niet wat je wil weten. Mail me.
Ja?
Ja, mail me maar.
Yet, when inviting them to comment outside of their mainstream safe space, they all of a sudden experience comprehension difficulties, seem to lack inspiration to twist and turn their way out of this one, or lack time, motivation, and are suddenly dumbfounded on the subject. And members of the Dutch Skeptics Association suffered a rare yet collective tongue loss condition this summer, while normally never wasting an opportunity to ridicule those with a mind of their own.
Since 9/11, we are engaged in what was framed the War on Terror, which did not exterminate terrorism. It actually made it more prolific. We see countries being invaded, producing more terror, death and fear in order to bring about more power for the military-industrial complex.
The script was fairly clearly spelled out in the Project for New American Centuries document, the PNAC document, published in September of 2000, titled Rebuilding America's Defenses, where it was very clear that the American agenda for global hegemony had almost stalled. And this was actually paraphrasing the work of Zbigniew Brzezinski, because he made pretty much the same claim in the Grand Chessboard, which he'd written or published in 1997, where he stated that the American public would not support a governmental agenda of aggression to achieve global hegemony unless there was some catastrophic event which then triggered their support. And of course this was almost repeated verbatim in the PNAC document, which said that basically it needed a new Pearl Harbor to be able to get the American public on board. And then of course George W. Bush famously said on the evening of 9/11, today, or wrote in his diary, I think, today we got our new Pearl Harbor.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who had used to work for me, and one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." Well, I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office, today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
As Dutch people, we went along with the invasion in Afghanistan and Iraq, and after it is now 15 years, we know that millions of Iraqi and Afghan people have been killed. And if we, in the meantime, know that the initial 9/11 attacks are probably not what they told us, then all those people have been killed in vain. And I think this is absolutely intolerable. So we will have to discuss these issues, in my opinion, because nobody wants to live in a world where this can happen. So this is, I think, my main reason to not let the discussion fade away, but to keep it alive and to demand justice for everyone involved not only the Americans, who lost a lot of people on that day, but also the other peoples who went into war and who have been the victims of war and genocide. And I think we owe it to them that this truth comes to the surface.
And the underlying, the real world is never talked about. The wars, definitely. And if we may touch on the subject of wars, it can be boiled down to the very fact that all wars are based on deception.
And that we will in fact find weapons or evidence of weapons programs that are conclusive.
I don't think we'll discover anything myself.
It appears that there were not weapons of mass destruction there.
You said you knew where they were.
I did not.
We know where they are. They're in the area around Tikrit and Baghdad and east, west, south, and north.
The colossal lies they simply cannot fathom. They cannot imagine that we are being lied to on such a colossal scale.